So gauge swatches have kind of got a bad rap. A lot of people complain about doing them. I complain about doing them. I don't like it. And I've spent some time thinking about it, and I think it's because when you finally have your pattern matched with the perfect yarn, you are ready to start the project. And a gauge swatch seems like you're wasting time because you're making something that you're just going to unravel or you're not going to use, and and you're not casting on for the project right away. I get it. I totally get it. I hate doing it. In fact, most of my knitting is for charity. And one of the reasons I love doing it for charity is I don't have to worry about what size it is because it's for somebody I don't know, and it's going to find a home and someone to wear it and love it. And but I do them when I'm making something for myself or for my own kiddo, who are the people that I knit most for when it's not for charity. Um, Gauge is important because you have to get the right number of stitches per inch, or in our particular situation, 4 inches. And if you don't, your ending project is going to be either too big or too small. And you don't want to put in all that time and effort and money and yarn to create something that isn't going to fit its intended recipient. So here we are with the gauge swatch, a necessary evil. So I made this swatch. For our particular pattern, we're supposed to be getting 18 stitches and 22 rows per 4 inches. So I went ahead and cast on the 18 stitches plus 3 on either side plus a couple more. So mathing 25 or so. What I wanted to make sure was I had enough to do a little bit of a border so it lays flat. If you knit stockinette, which is knit 1 row, purl 1 row, just by itself, it's going to curl around the edges, and I didn't want that. I wanted it to be able to lay flat so that I could accurately measure it. So I cast on 25. I did 2 rows of garter, which is knit, did 2 rows of just knitting, and then I started the stockinette, keeping 3 on each side, knit only. And then I did the stockinette for about 26 rows because I wanted to make sure I had a couple on either side. And then I did 2 more rows of knit only, and then I bound off. So then I laid it flat, and these pins are just holding it or pinning it down so it's flat. They don't serve any purpose. This is where knitting gets to be a little bit more art than science. Or one area, there's several. One area where it's a little more art than science, that you don't want to pull it real tight when you're pinning it down, but you do want to make sure it's not real bumpy or anything. So a medium amount of stretch. If you can see, I could still stretch it quite a bit. I'm just wanting to lay it nice and flat. So then what I did was I measured these. If you can see them, might be a little bit difficult to see. I have white pins. These are just like sewing pins. I measured 4 inches and 4 inches. So between these two, if I got the gauge correct, I should have 18 stitches, and between these two, if the gauge is correct, I should have 22. I went ahead and already counted. I do have 18 stitches this way. I have 23 rows this way. So I was able to get the gauge for the stitch count, not for the row count. If yours, when you do this, if yours has too few stitches this way, you need to go to smaller needles. If it has too many stitches this way, you need to go to bigger needles. Do the new swatch, try again. You might have to go up or down 2 needle sizes. For me, these were on size 9 needles. The pattern recommends number 8. I've been doing this long enough. I know that for this particular yarn, and the gauge called for, I needed to go for 9s. It's going to take a while if you're brand new at this to just a lot of experience in knitting with different yarns and different needles to kind of know what you need to do, which is why this is so important, because if I had done this on 8s, as the pattern suggested, my swatch would be too small, or if I just went in gangbusters and started the sweater, my sweater would be too small. So it's good to start with what the recommended is. You may and probably will have to either go up or down in needle size. Totally fine. This is just how we get that information. So what do you do if the stitch count is correct, but the row count is not correct, as is in my situation? With this pattern, it's more important to get the stitch count correct than the row count. That's because at several points in the pattern, it will just say knit until the piece measures so many inches. It doesn't tell you knit 40 rows and then move on. If it did tell you knit 40 rows and then move on, this would be much more important. But because it says to knit to a certain length, this becomes less so important, because you would just knit more rows or knit fewer rows as appropriate. Depending on the pattern, both may be very important. And if that's the case, then you get into some more advanced mathing. And we're not going to be doing advanced mathing in this class. So I think that's all we need to know about the gauge swatch. Let's move on.